Let's take a break. Coffee break tayo. Wala tayong cafecito.
Welcome to another coffee break where we're able to learn, discuss, and discover various topics. I'm glad you're able to join me on your coffee break. So grab yourself a hot cup of coffee and have a seat. Today's topic, we will be taking a good look at leadership and accountability. And so that we are able to do this in a very short amount of time because we are only on break. I'm going to just review a couple things and then just move forward and progress with the topic leadership and accountability, right? Because they do go hand in hand. So looking to start, let's start off by defining leadership. And leadership, of course, can be defined in various ways depending on who you are, but let's take a look at what I think. Leadership is the ability to inspire a team to achieve a certain goal, right? It's usually discussed in the context of business, but leadership is also how you as an individual choose to lead your life. And the true leadership definition is to influence, inspire, and help others become their best selves, the best version of themselves, building their skills or achieving their goals along the way. Is what leadership is. The way I personally define leadership and the way that I work from the perspective is that leadership is taking responsibility to ensure things go right for yourself, your family, and your community. So hope that that's clear and that we work from that perspective for today. And there are some general personality traits of effective leaders. As you know, an effective leader must have self-confidence. He must be a humble person. Is a person who is able to self-evaluate, whether it's in the short term or in the long term and in between. A person who is trustworthy, a person who is authentic in what they do and how they work and how they even socialize, right? So an effective leader is, or effective leadership is extroversion, right? Putting yourself out there. A person who's also assertive, right? In getting certain things accomplished and certain things done. And an effective leader does things out of enthusiasm, out of optimism, and out of empathy and warmth. And most importantly, any effective leader must have a great sense of humor because you will be laughing more than you should be crying, right? And sometimes when you do want to cry, it's not the end of the world. So all we can do is just, laugh at it and move forward, right? And that's part of the evaluation process and ensuring that we are moving forward. In looking to always become a better leader, it's important to address fear, right? And the question always is, I'm fearful of embarking on a new activity, and that's because you're not willing to take either a risk or you're just afraid of taking a risk because of the failure that's associated. And fear, as we know, is an unpleasant and often very strong emotion caused by the anticipation or awareness of whether it's danger or whether it's the fear of failure, right? To be afraid of failing. And in thinking of that, it's always thinking about how has your fear held you back from accomplishing what you should be accomplishing. And you'll be in a place that says, it's valid to have this emotion, but I've definitely missed a lot of opportunities. So I think you also need to look at the perspective or from the standpoint of asking yourself, what is stopping me from removing this fear from the equation so that I can take advantage of these opportunities and get the job done. And think about, okay, what would happen if you were no longer afraid, right? What would you be able to gain? What would you be able to accomplish? And it's really learning how to leverage your fear because in no way that I'm saying that fear is a bad thing. Sometimes it definitely helps you in your progress, in your capacity building, in your development, to be the most effective leader that you can be. But you need to use fear. Otherwise, fear will use you. So remember that bravery isn't being fearless and unafraid. It's being fearful and doing something anyway. And there are various ways that we can use fear. And it's by figuring out what your fear is telling you about your current situation and what it can teach you. Right? So it's analyzing the situation and why you're feeling how you're feeling, and then attempting to move forward. So no matter what your age, no matter how old I get, I think it's very difficult to overcome a fear or something that holds us back, especially if we walk away from it. So you need to definitely take the courage and focus on what the fear will bring your way, and then you'll truly be unstoppable, right? So now let's take a look at accountability. And accountability is an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility, and to account for one's actions. So that's how we'll look at accountability for today, right? Your obligation or an obligation or willingness to accept responsibility or to account for one's actions. We'll also be looking at why accountability is important and what happens when there is no accountability. And there are two different types of accountability: internal accountability and external accountability. When it comes to internal accountability, is being accountable for oneself, for yourself. And it's an individual personal commitment to be true to your values and to fulfill your promises. And it comes from within you, and it creates a credibility that others trust and respect, right? So if people see you in a moment of weakness per se, because we're not accomplishing or feeling a sense of accomplishment, and you have tied it to perhaps it's the way that you did something, then your team, your coworkers will see you in a different light, and now that they see you more as a human rather than as a machine, and you become more credible, right? And they'll trust you more and they'll respect you more for that. So that's the internal accountability. And then of course we have the external accountability. And external accountability is all about being accountable to others. And it creates an environment that people feel compelled to follow. It's a set of social norms, standards, whatever it might be. And as an example of having external accountability, or what external accountability looks like, you would be accountable to your parents, your siblings, your teachers, your teammates, your coworkers, your friends, your employer, your supervisor, your pastor, right? Those are the people who we are accountable, the other people that we're accountable to. And that's where external accountability comes in. And it's always good to think about and take some time to reflect about what are the areas in your life that you need to increase your internal accountability, right? Being accountable to yourself. And it's also important to think about what areas in your life you need to increase your external accountability. And again, external being others that you're accountable to, internal being accountable to yourself. So now we'll look at how leadership and accountability are connected. And you and we and me as leaders always need to ensure that we are holding ourselves accountable as much as we would hold others accountable for whether it's a project, a task, an activity, from a small task to a large task. And it's ensuring that you're building in the accountability for your daily work. And there are some definite habits that highly accountable people have and use. And we'll review those. So if you have a pen and paper handy, feel free to take notes. If not, just save this for later. But highly accountable people will always take responsibility. Highly accountable people willingly take on responsibility and actively manage it so that the job gets done, whatever it might be, right? So they're the ones who are taking on the task. They're the ones who raise their hand at the meeting to say, I'll do it, whenever there's a request for volunteerism or taking on more than they that's on their job description. So highly accountable leaders take on responsibility. They also never make excuses, right? So they don't make excuses. Highly accountable people don't know and don't throw others under the bus for their own missteps or inaction. They also don't excuse themselves based upon any outside influence, right? So it's when something is being done, it's the team, right? It's not them, it's us, and they never point fingers, right? So they don't make excuses. Highly accountable people are always on time. They understand that every project has a time value and that punctuality serves a purpose. Part of what makes them trustworthy is their efficiency and dependability to not waste a minute of other people's time or of their own. Time is money, and it does translate to money. Using the excuse that, it's how our people are, well, that's a very toxic behavior that we need to eliminate from the start. It's unacceptable. If you're highly accountable and you're a true leader, you will always be on time. No excuses. Okay, next we have, I think it would be number 4. Highly accountable people control their own fate. They don't work from the perspective of victim mentality, right? They think that a victim's mentality is part of their repertoire. They never see themselves as victims or anything. Things don't happen because of them. Things, people aren't out to get me, right? And that's how I am. I never play the victim role. Number 5 would be owning your own feelings. Highly accountable people know that negative emotions can derail productivity. You're able to stay in control of your own feelings, and you don't let a bad day or emotional colleague, as an example, get in the way of accomplishing what needs to be done. Because sometimes we need to take the emotion out of the equation, and sometimes we need to own our emotions in order to get the job done, right? And that's it goes to and talks about emotional intelligence. The next would be managing expectations, right? Highly accountable people really manage expectations. They're very clear about what needs to be done and when it needs to be done, right? That's holding yourself accountable to the timeline. But that's the internal accountability portion. And then there's the external accountability portion to that, which is, right, the grant, the deliverable, the whatever it might be. You're accountable to your boss. You're accountable to the Fed, the state, the county, the local jurisdiction, etc. So number 7 would be collaboration. Highly accountable people collaborate. They are great at using the resources around them. And I've said it once, and I'll keep saying it, and I'll say it again. You will have a better outcome if you use the people around you, and if you use the resources next to you or around you, right? So make sure that you're collaborating, because you'll have fun. You'll meet new people. You'll network. It'll open the door and possibilities for new things. Next, we would have, and I think this is where it's not a struggle, but it's something that people will notice of me, is that highly accountable people do not expect praise. Any praise that we get along the process or along the way, it's just an added bonus for a job well done, right? So, don't expect praise. It's part of the job, right? I don't need a candy for everything that I do. I don't need a candy or someone to tell me job well done because I put a piece of paper in an envelope and mailed it, right? No praise needed or expected. Whatever praise I get along the way, whatever thanks I get along the way, I consider it an added bonus to the job well done, and to the job I know that I did. Right. So those are basically 8 habits of highly accountable people, ensuring that you practice those habits, and use those habits in your daily leadership roles. Again, whether it's for yourself, your family, your job, your social life, etc. And speaking of that, right, how can accountability improve areas of your life? I get that question asked quite a bit. And, if you don't have an accountability plan, whether it's on paper officially or here, it always begs for the question, well, will you get it done, right? Will you get the job done in the timeline, in the space allotted, et cetera, et cetera. So in looking to have an accountability plan, you need to look at various things. And of course, it's thinking about perhaps your life. And we're going to, you can look at it in 2 perspectives. From the internal perspective, having an accountability plan, and being accountable to yourself, and having an accountability plan from the external point of view, and how you hold yourself accountable to others. And you would be looking at some things to include in your plan to ensure that you have the outcomes that you desire. And so in looking internally, and how can I be accountable to myself, and it's, what are the areas of your life that need to have an improvement or an increase of internal accountability. So you can list those, right? Time management, budgeting, procrastination, whatever it might be, right? So those are the things in your life that you need to increase your internal accountability. You would also look at, okay, well, now that I've identified this, how will I accomplish it, right? What are the objectives that you'll be using to get the job done? Once you've identified those, you will then look at when, so having a timeline, by when, the due dates, the deadlines, whatever you want to call it. And then it's always building in an external component to this, and asking yourself, okay, well, by doing this, and by doing it by this time, okay, who's going to hold me accountable, or who can I ask to hold me accountable, right? And then reward yourself for when it's completed. If you build your accountability plan based on the internal and external factor, you'll see that you'll definitely look to improve the way you operate, improve the way you manage, improve the way that you perform. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to get at, right? Building the most effective leader that you can be. So again, in building your kind of accountability plan, look at it from two perspectives: internal and external. And by delineating that process and looking at areas in your life that you need help increasing your internal accountability, your external accountability, how you'll be able to accomplish this, when you'll be able to accomplish this, and then of course looking at who will hold you accountable to this task. And don't be afraid to reward yourself in thinking about, okay, this is what I get out of it, with a win, with progress, with achievement, right? So okay, if you, in looking at internal accountability, and you want to lose 20 pounds, right? You'll lose 20 pounds by being physically active 30 minutes a day, 60 minutes a day, going to the gym, whatever, however you want to make that look. By when, right? Setting your timeline, I will accomplish this within 6 months. And then, asking someone or requesting that they hold you accountable to this, right? Who will hold you accountable to achieving this task? You can say, hey, give a $50 bill to, well, I don't know if you want to give a $50 bill to a friend or a family member, but saying, hey, or if I achieve this, would you do this, right? Or, we'll go on a trip, whatever it might be, whatever the small reward is, but, holding yourself and having someone to help you hold yourself accountable, thinking about and looking at small wins, small progress. So what does progress look like? At the midpoint, at the 3 months, have you lost 10 pounds, right? And how would you celebrate that? How would you acknowledge your progress? And you'll be fine. So I'll leave you with a quote: "A true leader is one who is humble enough to admit their mistakes." John C. Maxwell. That's it for today's coffee break. So make sure you like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and share this video. So get back to work or whatever it is that you were doing, and see you on our next coffee break. Should you want a workshop on this topic, feel free to get at me, Lates.